Hello, everyone. My name is Viktoras Bachmetjevas, and we're continuing our conversations, which are devoted to the war in Ukraine. And today, my pleasure is to talk to Alex Shulga, who is the founder and CEO at the Institute for Conflict Analysis and Analysis of Russia, which is based in Kiev, Ukraine. Hello, Alex. How's it going?
Hello, thank you for having me here.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you, Alex, because you are one of the very few, if not the only person I know who continually researches situation in Russia. I think since the war started, I mean the full-scale war in 2022, if not before, a lot of us outside of Russia were asking questions to ourselves and to Russians we knew in Russia. What is happening? Why this country, or at least its political elite, why are they so aggressive towards their neighbors? And there are many, many questions. So it's very interesting to talk to people who who research Russia and Russian society continuously. Correct me if I'm wrong, you do research on Russian society for how many years now?
It's about 2 years, two and a half, but still it is, our advantage. I mean, Ukrainian scholars that and disadvantage. So it's from the one hand, Russia, it was something taken for granted. So yeah, it's our neighbors. Yes, sometimes they could be, annoying, arrogant, aggressive, but they're our neighbors. So we, from the very beginning, we grew up watching the TV shows, even Russian news in the beginning of 2000s. We were with them when there were terrorist attacks like Beslan or Dubrovka theater. So we were with them. So we have this compassion, empathy. So it was like divided countries. I mean, separate countries, but we were in the information, not bubble, but environment.
Information space, yeah.
So it was taken for granted that Russia is our neighbor. But from the other hand, it was our disadvantage that we didn't see this aggressive attitudes, that revisionist attitudes, and we didn't take them seriously. So if we will, just check a few, randomly few TV shows, political TV shows on Russian TV, even during 90s, you could find I would say in each such a TV show, a few guys who would talk about Crimea, that we should take it back. I mean, we Russians, that we should, rethink if Ukraine is really an independent state, which lands are from the times immemorial are Russian and which are not, etc., etc. So that was really a problem that we didn't see it. We heard it, but we didn't hear it. We didn't comprehend that there is a threat. So frankly, I do research in Russia for 2 years, with 9 months of gap, me being in the trenches and me being in the military service from the very beginning, full-scale invasion. And yeah, it's you cannot stop doing it. For example, just this night before our conversation, it was another Shahed kamikaze drones attack on Kiev, and it was an explosion. Right, I was witness of this explosion from my window. It was a neighboring big house, condominium, I would say. It was direct hit by a shahed. There were people inside. It was big kaboom, and it was, it is instant reminder. Nothing is over yet. Everything is, is in active phase. So, and you should do your best, to understand what is going, to predict what would happen, and to do everything you can to have your to give your contribution, to make your contribution in this whole process. So I would say it was a huge mistake, not only mine, but it was a whole Ukrainian society, Ukrainian authorities, Ukrainian, I would say, scholars community. We have taken Russia for granted. We didn't focus on Russia all the 30 years. We didn't have like some kind of Russologists, or like during the Cold War, there were Kremlinologists or Sovietologists.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, our institution, me personally, we try, to correct this state of affairs. We need Russologists. We need deep comprehension on what is going on in Russia. So now we have another obstacle. So before the full-scale invasion and before 2014 annexation of Crimea and starting of war in Donbass by Russian troops and special forces, we have taken Russia for granted. After the full-scale invasion, after the atrocities and numerous war crimes Russia committed and still committing as we speak, we have another obstacle. It is disgust. So, it's disgust and anger and hatred. So their feelings, destructive feelings, they created in our souls. So, and I understand them. I experienced what Russians are capable to do. So I spent some time in the trenches. Russian tank tried to kill me. Their mortars tried to kill me, and as well as my comrades. I saw little villages flattered to the ground. With no any, with no civilian inside, and maybe only dead dogs and cats and goats, and many of them, just walking in these ruins and searching for their people, and maybe they're dead already. Maybe they just became, just fled to another region. So it's really, some scenes from apocalyptic movie. So I saw everything, and I could have this hatred and this disgust, but it's a luxurious feeling. I can't afford it. I should keep my head cool and to use scientific methodology and means to comprehend what is going on. So it's too easy to have this hatred and disgust. Yeah. For me and for my colleagues, we can't afford it.
Yeah, that's very understandable. And listening to you, Alex, I was thinking there's also another more practical obstacle, is that you now, being based in Kiev, trying to research Russian society and its moods, it's not only that you are geographically detached, but also you are considered to be, the representative of the enemy. So can you talk us through a little bit about what kind of methodology is available to you? So how do you access Russians, and how do you overcome these methodological obstacles?
So from your point of view, it's very logical question. So yeah, from the one hand, there is a problem. So you are based in Kiev. How can you conduct surveys in Russia?
Yeah.
But we live in 21st century. Russians do not live in 21st century mentally. We do. We use technology. We use new methods. And we use every means of technological progress for our purposes. So another very important aspect of this process is that COVID showed us the way. COVID, I mean this pandemic situation. So during all my scientific career, which is now 17 years of this career, I used computer-assisted personal interviews, face-to-face interviews. So our interviewers have a root list. It's called root list. I would, I think it is a correct name for this document. So they have procedures to select certain households, certain respondents due to this root list, and after that they ask questions if they have consent of our respondent. But with the start of COVID-19, it was prohibited. It was impossible to conduct such kind of surveys. I mean, face-to-face surveys. So everyone who had such an opportunity, I mean, those countries which have very deep penetration of internet, they switched to computer-assisted web interviews, online interviews. It's really it's cheaper. It's very cheap in comparison to computer-assisted personal interviews. It's faster and it's easy to to conduct, even with a small group of researchers. But for Ukraine and as well as for Russia, it was not possible due to methodological motives, because penetration of internet is not so deep to cover the whole society in Ukraine as well as in Russia. So, for example, you can conduct the surveys in Russia as well as in Ukraine. For example, if we are interested only in those who live in big cities, I mean Moscow, St. Petersburg, capitals of the regions. But if we want to have a representative sample for the whole Russia, it will be biased using only internet, computer-assisted web interviews, because small cities, certain regions are not penetrated with internet, and they will be in this sample. So, how to solve this problem? Its name is computer-assisted telephone interview, because everyone have mobile phones, and it's easy to have to conduct this research, the respective research via telephone. It's also easier, cheaper, and faster in comparison to computer-assisted personal interview. Not so cheap, not so fast, and not so easy to organize as computer-assisted web interviews, but still. So from the start of COVID-19, the majority, or maybe 99.9% of Russian scholars as well as Ukrainian scholars switched to computer-assisted telephone interviews. So this methodic, this approach was improved significantly during a few years. So I would say, yeah, COVID showed us the way. So if we had no war between Ukraine and Russia, if we have no hostilities and even we were, neighboring countries with good relations, and we would like, for some reason, we would like, to know what is going on in Russia. Even in this case, we would use computer system, telephone, interview. So very easy. Another important, I would say, point that it's not disadvantage of our institutions that we are not based in Russia. It's advantage because we can publish these results freely. We can discuss them freely. And of course, we have certain restrictions when we formulate questions. What do I mean? For example, of course, we don't use the term war. We use only special military operation term. Of course, we use certain, I would say, specifics of Russian language used to, which is common in Russia. For example, na Ukraine, not v Ukraine.
Yeah.
In Ukraine we use v Ukraine. In Russia, for them it is, they think it is right to say na Ukraine. Of course, there is a context, socio-historical and political context why they use na instead of v. But it's not a topic of our conversation. But still, we need to use this specific.
In other words, you adapt to the cultural and social circumstances of Russian society.
Of course, our questions are formulated very formally. I mean, with no emotions. From all points of view, it is right decision. But here we should keep our respondents aware of suspicions that we are not from Russia. Of course, our interviewers are trained to speak properly, not with this Ukrainian accent, because it is quite obvious accent.
So in other words, am I correct? Your interviewers, they present themselves as being Russian, as this is a Russian sociological company which is conducting an interview.
Yeah, of course. It would be impossible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, to conduct interviews. So it will be like just curses from our respondents, or just hanging up their phones. So. What else should
can I ask one question, because there's also I'm not an expert in sociological research and surveys, but one quite common comment and critique of surveys in Russia, especially by phone, is that Russians do not speak freely because they are scared this comes from Soviet times, repressions, etc., etc. So sometimes people mock surveys. It doesn't matter if they come from Russian companies like Levada or outsiders, but that Russian will say what they think the caller, which they mean authorities, that what they want to hear. So and that basically means that these surveys are not credible. What would you say to that?
It's a frequently asked question, so fair enough. And that was I wanted to emphasize before your question that Russians, and I always repeat this statement during such kind of conversations. Russians are talkative. The answers are quite enriched with their emotions, assessments. So it's not yes, Mr. Major, no, Mr. Major, no, sir, yes, sir. It's stereotype. It's a myth. Another very important quantitative proof. It's a response rate. So-called good Russians or Russian oppositioners, they always argue with all these surveys that, come on, only 5 people out of 10 of 100, or so only 5% they agree to participate in this kind of surveys. So it's it's bias from the very beginning. Come on, they're all scared. It's not. I have a theory why they don't want to rely on this on any kind of survey, because the majority of the surveys show something about Russian society that Russian oppositioners, Russian politicians don't want to hear or to recognize. We are not Russian politicians, so our purpose is to conduct surveys and to have unbiased data and results, and to be able to make predictions. So they're talkative. They really, because I know that, because I hear every single interview, recording of every single interview we conduct in Russia. So it's we use the very same sample that Russian sociologists use for their surveys. It is 1,600 respondents. So and their socio-demographic parameters are the same. So they're talkative. They also they ask questions in return to our interviewers. So they try to discuss something, and yeah, our interviewers are trained, to remind our respondents that, come on, it is a quantitative survey. We have like a list of alternatives, but sometimes we do not use, we don't propose the alternatives. We just let them speak, and then we select what is the most closest, what they express. And the most important. So your question was about that they talk and they express those opinions and the answer in such way that they think will be will go together with official propaganda, official discourse. Am I correct?
Yes, I think that's normally that's the charge. Yes.
Yeah, that's the charge. So yeah, we have the same concern. And from the very beginning, our methodology and our approach is about this collision. So we have a set of questions that are, we know from the very beginning what will be the answers. So for example, do you think, in which direction do you think course of events in Russia is moving? Is it right direction or in the wrong direction? So 63, on average, 63, 65, 66% answer in the right direction. But then we ask them, what are the main problems which are the most important for you and for Russia? So, and we don't propose any alternatives. So just express yourself and please tell us what is the first problem, the second, which comes in mind. So, and we have also questions about the experiences. For example, do you have someone among your relatives, friends, colleagues, neighbors, or acquaintances who was conscripted since 2022? If yes, do you have someone who was killed in action? It's yes or not. What are your possibilities, your capacity to buy goods and services? It increased or decreased so you can buy more or less in comparison to 2019, 2020. It's yes or no. It's the experience, and then we can compare this official propaganda level and daily life level. So what they face every day and what they hear from television and from authorities. And we have these real, very bright examples, very telling examples of this collision. And we call it split consciousness. When two contradictory facts are, in the same head of our respondents, in the same public consciousness. They are not taken for granted, but they are taken as a fact. But those two facts are contradictory, but still they're taken as something real. And that is very important feature of Russian society, split consciousness. From this feature, many other features, also crucial features, stem. Criminal mentality, conspirological mentality, and way of thinking, shifting of responsibility, etc., etc. But this feature is, I would say, key feature of Russian society.
Okay, I see. Maybe we can, I think let's talk about your findings. So we talked quite a lot about the methodology. I think, am I right? The last survey you did was in the autumn of 23.
Yeah.
So, and you normally do it every 6 months?
No. Our ambition was, our purpose was to conduct it every month. So, and we did it. So during December 2022, it was our first wave. Then every month during winter and spring of 2023. Then we conducted another survey in July 23 and June 23, and the seventh wave, the latest wave, was conducted in September 2023.
Okay, so more or less you have about you can track now the changes in the moods for almost a year based on this specific survey. So could you talk a little bit and now to us, what are the main preoccupations or what are the main problems for Russian society according to your findings? So what is on their mind, so to speak? What are they thinking about? What they're most worried about? What's their problem? What are their problems?
So there, so our main goal was to have such a scientific tool as monitoring, so we can use the same questions for different surveys and then have dynamics of the attitude of the respective attitude and see what are the changes, main changes. If we're talking about crucial indicators. So first indicator is what is the most important, most I would say vital problems for Russians on their daily, their everyday life level. So in December 2022, during our first survey, we asked our respondents, so what is the most important problem? And that's it. So no alternatives, please name this problem. Yeah, tell us, please. So 50% from the very beginning, they answered it was a special military operation, so-called. Or certain portion of respondents answered directly, it was war. So 50%.
That was last year.
Yeah, exactly 1 year ago. So all other problems, they were far behind this main problem of special military operation. So at the second place was high prices and low incomes. It was named by 25%. And then medical problems, I mean, medical system and access to the medical services was about 15 or 12%. So even more, behind the main problem, etc., etc. But with the course of events during winter and spring, this attitude start changing, and as of autumn 2023, they changed, I would say, dramatically. As for now, the main problem are low incomes and high prices. So financial problems of Russians. So it was not like very fast process. It was not like this month we have this problem, special military operations, the main problem. Another month we have another problem. No, during spring and summer and start of this process, it was end of winter. So special military operation now it is on the second place. So it is very important change, because from the one hand it shows that war is in the process of routinization. It's a very bad sign, because even 1 year ago it was a new problem. It was artificial problem, not as traditional so-called problems as low incomes, medical problems with medical services, bed roads, problems with other services. It was something new, and it really was the main problem. It was, it was named right away. So what are the main problems? Special military operation. But in the course of events, with changes on the front lines, and I would say becoming of this war as a new normality, trying of Russian propaganda to depict this war as a new normality for Russian society, it really became to routinize and really become one of the problems, together with bad roads, together with low income, together with bad medical system, etc., etc. It's a bad story. Another important aspect of this question is that low incomes and high prices, they really they have solid reasons to be on the first place. Because as we have experienced, as we have seen, Russia experienced many economic problems, and they're not so bad as we wanted to. They can deter Russia from this aggressive war, but still problems with course of dollar and euro in comparison to Russian ruble, all those problems with producing foods and certain category of food. For example, there's problems with eggs. Even Putin mentioned during his press conference. They experience it. I mean, ordinary Russians experience it. And of course, from the one hand, war is something that is over there. I mean, for those who are not directly involved into this war. From the other hand, you can see prices and decrease of your capacity to buy goods and services. You experience it every day. So it's something which is very actual for you. So it's a very dramatic change, I would say, during this. From the one hand, routinization of war. From the other hand, impact of this war on the day at the daily level.
Maybe
daily level.
Yeah, Alex, maybe we should mention that you mentioned that last year about 50% said that main problem is war in Ukraine. And this autumn, I see that only 32% says that,
32, yeah.
that war.
Yeah,
and from your explanation, I understand that it's not that economic problems have become more important or more pressing, but that basically the war has become a routine, one of the issues among many, and that I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's a worrying sign. So it means that Russian society does not feel like it's a pressing problem which needs to be addressed. Could you say something about these economic problems? Can we say that they are increasing because of sanctions? Because there's a lot of talk outside of Russia, especially in the West, how effective the sanctions are against Russia, and that Russia is, there are many opinions. One of them is that Russia is an extremely large country which has a huge internal market, and so it can survive with sanctions for decades. But these economic issues, are they exasperated by, are they increased by sanctions, or do Russians feel sanctions at all, or do they mention them in their answers?
So it's an interesting question. It has no direct answer on it. So few telling examples I will name. First, when we ask what are the main problems, as we have already mentioned, which are the most actual, the most important for you personally, only 2 to 3%, 2 or 3, yeah, even sometimes 1% named sanctions as the main problem. Only 1 or 2%. So the main problem was from the very beginning, from the start of our sociological monitoring, was special military operations, then low incomes, and then it was a switch to low incomes as the main problem. But sanctions, you know, they have only 2 to 3%, and we can't say that they have like very significant importance in the public, in the Russian public attitudes and public consciousness. But for this reason, we put another set of questions in our surveys. So first was, do you think, so how do you assess change in the Russia's economy? So it become better or worse? So the majority say that Russian economy get worse, and there are negative tendencies during this period of full-scale invasion. Also, we asked, what about your capacities to purchase goods and services? Also, the majority, more than 60%, answered that they also get worse, their capacities decrease. And then we asked, what are the main reasons for that? And it was a question where respondents could pick different answers, so simultaneously 1, 2, 3 answers. So the main five alternatives they picked were: first, anti-Russian sanctions. So it was the first reason that Russians named why Russian economy get worse and their capacities also decrease of buying goods and services. Second was special military operation, which is very, you know, expensive. Third reason was that special military operation led to mass mobilization, and this mass mobilization, you know, it led that those who could produce something, they went to war. Only one reason was related to foolish economic politics of Russian government.
Mhm.
And fifth main reason for decreasing of their capacities and deterioration of Russian economy was that because of mass mobilization, this mass mobilization led to mass migration, emigration of Russians abroad. And they could also produce something in the sake of their motherland and not in the sake of other countries. So 4 out of 5 main reasons were connected to special military operation and sanction. So there is this connection in Russian public consciousness that war led to sanctions. Sanctions led to decrease, and war itself led to deterioration of Russian economy and their financial situation and their personal capacities to buy goods and services. And another very important, now it's not based on sociological survey, but based on common sense and data we have, and it is not like something classified. That Russian economics, and they're proud of that, switched to military economics.
Mhm.
So what they produce and what they and even Putin used this data, that they have the growth in economy. But why they have this growth? Because of military production. And when you product shells, rockets, bombs, it's something which will be, sent to the heads of poor Ukrainians or someone else, and it won't, give something good to Russians. I mean, it's not produced for Russians. It's not something that will multiply. They're not roads, they're not factories, they're building. They produce means of destruction. So I would my point is that their economy now switched very deeply to this export of war. So for the sake of this new economy, of Russia's economy, together with export of oil and gas, they need protraction of war or starting new war. Of course, not so bloody and not so hard as Ukrainian as war against Ukraine, but something that will keep the military production actual and something that is needed, because they can't switch it, return it to something producing, for example, I don't know, cars or some goods for civil life. So that something that Russia can produce that relatively can be named as technological production. So military production is some kind of technological production. The only way they can, produce something unless that oil and gas. So my point is that this protraction of this war or starting new wars of aggression is something that will be led not only by ideological and political and geopolitical interests, but also the economy will necessitate their steps.
We'll talk a little bit about the future, but before we do that, I want to ask one more question about the attitude of Russians towards the war in Ukraine. So we talked about the routinization of the war, that it has become kind of one of the problems. But also your survey shows that when you ask people the concrete questions from their everyday experience, so do you know anyone who has been mobilized, or do you know anyone who has been killed in the war? The numbers are huge. The numbers are huge. And also, when you ask people, would you support another wave of mobilization, people are saying no, and the huge numbers, more than 50%. But
60, now it is 69.
69% saying that we would be against. How should we read these numbers? Do they mean anything in the sense that, let's say I can be against raising of taxes in my home country, Lithuania, but if the government will decide to raise taxes, I will do nothing. I will just remain against it. But, I will not become an active protester or an agent of change. So how much potential, basically my question is that, how much protest potential is in these numbers? Are people just saying I'm against it, but they will not do anything for, out of fear of repressions, or out of not knowing what to do? Or there is some potential that they would mobilize, counter this mobilization in the war, and that they would act as some sort of change, or at least pressure towards their government?
So, yeah, it's a good question. First of all, during our first survey in December 2022, we asked them, asked Russians, do you think the first wave of mobilization this autumn, autumn of 2022, was the right decision? 60% answered yes, it was the right decision. Then the next question was, do you think, would you support another way of mass mobilization? 62% said no, we don't need it. So from the one hand, we have such a phenomena I call like conciliation or post factum agreement. This feature of Russians, so they agree if something is done, when it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
So this decision is made, mobilization was conducted, so there is no reason, there is no rational reason to argue with that. So it's done. But if something could be, some decision could be made and it could affect me personally, I will be against it. So what about protest potential and the 69%? I would say that this attitude towards mobilization, this unacceptance of new wave of mass mobilization, is a very good example that such kind of surveys in Russia, those we conduct or someone conduct in Russia, are very important, because based on this survey, we can predict the course of events. For example, it was very obvious that there will be no new mass and overt mobilization in Russia during this year, because this strong unacceptance, it was obvious not only for us, but also for Kremlin strategists and political scientists and political technologists. So it was obvious also for them. And as we know, there were no mass mobilization during 2023. Instead of that, they chose covert conscription. So every month they conscripted covertly 20 to 30,000 people, or they pushed those who were just conscripted earlier to sign contract, to be a contractor, to become a contractor. So this is very good example why we should conduct such kind of surveys. So, and we also can predict that there will be no mobilization until the Putin's elections, the presidential election. So till the end of this spring 2024 or during summer 2024, because of course there are many variables that can affect this process and this decision, but still strong acceptance of this decision led Kremlin to choosing covert mobilization instead of conducting another mass mobilization as in autumn 2022. For example, Girkin, who is a well-known, I would say, that patriotic activist and who tried to consolidate, different micro movements around himself and this KRP club of fist patriots, how they call themselves. He's behind bars because of these heavy critics of Kremlin, and one of the main points was that we need another mass mobilization. We need this mobilization for yesterday. Why don't they conduct this mass mobilization? So it is very good point, and it is very good question and a very good example why we need do we need there's research. So and now what we can say about Russian society and Russian attitude towards the war. So first, I would divide Russian society it's like a sketched division, very schematical one, but still we have 4 major groups of Russian society regarding the attitudes towards the war against Ukraine. Before I will name them, I would like to emphasize, it always triggers me when I hear it and when I read it. It's not a war in Ukraine. We can have rain in Ukraine, we can have snow in Ukraine, something, natural course of events. It's freaking war of Russia against Ukraine. It's not war in Ukraine. It's something that just happened, just appeared, emerged from nothing. It's war of one state, in our case of Russia, against another case, another country. So, 4 major groups. First, party of peace, those who are ideologically and morally against this war. Another, that patriots, those who ideologically and morally, from the moral stance and points of view, they think that this justified war. They can be monarchists, socialists, communists, imperialists, but still ideologically and they really think that this war is justified. Then passive majority, who focus on their daily life problems, and they don't want to think about it, about this war, about these origins, and its consequences. But then we have another very important group, very important category, I would say. I would name the accomplices. So they're those who are dreaming with the respective argumentation. Yes, maybe this war is unjust. Yes, maybe Russia made a mistake and Kremlin made a mistake. Maybe we committed a lot of atrocities and war crimes there. But we should win this war, because otherwise we will suffer. We will suffer consequences. We will suffer reparations. It will affect me and my children personally. Russia can't lose. Russia is a nation of winners. We can't lose to this, miserable Ukrainians. We can't lose to that decadent Westerners. So yes, war isn't just, but we should win it. We started it. It was a stupid decision, but now we should, correct this decision by winning this war. And that particular group, it is very important question. If it will increase in the upcoming months and years, and the main, I would say, source of recruiting to this group are those who are referred to passive majority and even to the party of peace, because there's hardships that they will endure because of economics, hardships of mobilization, could be argumentation not to stop this war, but to put more efforts even to win it. And it is very important issue, and it is very important dynamics. We should, not only we, but everyone should keep in mind and research, study it, elaborate more efforts to have to study the argumentation. We need case studies, we need in-depth interviews, we need focus groups, not only quantitative but also qualitative approach to this. I will be frankly, we would make a lot of surveys, regional surveys, qualitative surveys, surveys with certain methodology to have, not the general methodology, but for example, to be able to conduct certain kinds of analysis, like cluster analysis, factor analysis. So because to be able to do that, we need certain specific instrumental approach. Certain questions, kinds of questions, the way they address alternatives to be able to conduct this analysis. So it is it's only about funds. So it's my time to complain. Now it's a minute of complaints. Yeah, but it should be done.
Alex, could you? It's very interesting what you said about this group of accomplices. It reminds me what in business is called sunk costs. Is when people doubt the decision that has been made, but they say we invested so much already, now we can't stop the project, so we have to continue. And it seems that this is a very similar logic, that we already, maybe it was stupid to start the war, but now we started, we have to win because we are, otherwise it will be even worse.
We're the same boat. We're the same boat, yeah.
Could you give percentages to these groups? So let's say in Russian society, do you have any idea, let's say how big is the party of peace, how big is the party of war, how big is this passive majority, and how big is the group of what you call accomplices? And it seems to me, I agree with you, it seems that accomplices kind of grow out of the passive majority. These are the people who say, I don't care, but if I care, then it's better we win, something like that. Yeah.
Again, it would be only a sketch, division, but still, yeah. So I would say that about now and from the very beginning, we are talking about attitudes. We are not talking about personal readiness to participate I will elaborate it further, but now let's talk about the proportions. So I would say 20 to 25% are those who are party of war or that patriotic. I mean those core supporters, up to 30% in certain months. Party of peace, I would describe them as 15%, those who are really, I would say, have ideological and moral principles that are against it. So they really don't like what is happening, not because they endure economic hardships or they can be mobilized, but because of their beliefs. The rest are passive majority plus, I would say, about 10%, 10 to 15%. Those who could be called accomplices. So, and that is very important. That's accomplices. If this portion will be rising, will be increasing, what what will be tempo of this increasing? If it will be fast increasing, what could affect it? For example, possibility of new mass mobilization. It is very, very, powerful factor which will affect this, migration among these groups. And another very important question, when we will ask. So Russians have very strong, I would say, magical mentality, magical way of thinking. It's not only their, unique feature, but they really demonstrate that this magic way of thinking is very powerful. What I'm talking about. So I always use this example of Ukrainian attack on Russia's, I would say, compound. It was a building of former university or college. Hundreds of Russians were gathered there for celebrating New Year of New Year 2023, and it was attacked right on 0001 minute of 2023, the very first minute of 2023, by HIMARS or some kind of precise weapons used by Ukrainians. So that very fact was very, very important, and it affected Russians very, deeply, I would say. Why it is so? So they have this perception and this, belief, magical belief that all bad will remain in the previous war, and all good will go to the next year. So this magical symbolic boundary between 2022 and 2023 were breached by HIMARS or other rockets sent from 2022. They approached this building at the very beginning of 2023 and killed like hundreds of Russians at one time. It was very powerful. It was statement from Ukrainian side. No, there won't be better this year. No, all the bad things won't remain in 2022. It will be still blood and suffering and everything connected with war and hostilities, etc. And another symbolic boundary also breached by this war it was anniversary, first anniversary of the full-scale invasion. So February 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So as we speak, we are approaching to second anniversary, and another symbolic boundary of 2023 and 2024. So there's two boundaries of New Year and anniversary of full-scale invasion. I would say they affected, deeply Russian society. That nothing changes, everything is getting worse. There is no hope for increasing, and that is the reason why at the end of this year, Putin has a lot of press conferences, and he demonstrates with all his stance, words, expression, mimics, that we are winning. Russia is winning. Many soldiers of Ukrainian army are killed. We are moving forward. We proceed with our assaults, etc., etc., etc. So they try desperately to depict this war as a win situation. That we're winning is it's not it's not just a fodder. We need for another few days. We know it's not like few thousand will be killed in the upcoming hours. We are winning. It's not senseless killing and suffering. So what I'm saying that Russian attitude towards the war will be affected very strongly, all in all, by the course of events on the front line. If there will be major changes on the front line, like the same, like liberation of Kharkivska Oblast, or liberation of Kherson, or the withdrawal of troops from the outskirts of Kiev. So, from the one hand, a lot of people experience, conscription of their relatives and close ones. And a lot of people experience, death of someone they knew. From the other hand, no progress in this war. Like little Bakhmut, that was seized during 2023, and the price for this, it's incomparable. So the same will be in 2024. That is why Ukraine desperately wanted to this counteroffensive. It's about showing and demonstrating that all this, thousands and dozens of thousands and hundreds of thousands killed and wounded, it's for nothing. There is no progress for Russia. There is no way for you to win and even hold what you occupy. So all in all, front line will be the most important factor that will affect their attitudes. If there will be, that is why Russian president and Russian regime, they don't want to stop for now, because they should, they want first to demonstrate we are ready for the war for attrition, we are ready for the long-term war. Second reason, the economy, it switched to military economy. So the only thing they can export are bombs and rockets. If they will stop, what they will have instead? They can't stop, because otherwise they should face all the internal problems. And of course they can't stop before the presidential election. But it is also very hard situation for them after that election. First, they will be, I think it is very probable they will decide to conduct another overt mass wave of mobilization. They will face the necessity of, making very hard decisions in economic and financial domains, and very, I would say, the most crucial, Putin will face the crisis of ideas and the crisis what he can propose to Russian society. So before that, he proposed greatness without serious testing of their capability to achieve this greatness. So it was like just a promise of greatness. So we are great, and if someone will, say something or will threat to us, we will smash them. Kiev for 3 days, or NATO smashed within a few hours. It was about that. But then they started this full-scale invasion. Now it is just yesterday, Gerasimov, the chief of staff of the army, he said, our main goal for 2023 was to hold the lines and not to, to let Ukrainians to conduct counteroffensive. Come on, you are second army in the world, you name yourself. And what about Kyiv for 3 days? What are those miserable statements about? But still, so what they can propose to their population? Indefinite war, indefinite and numerous conscriptions and losses and wounded and killed, etc., etc. So for what? What if this indefinite war, is that greatness? Is that Russian world? What is it about? So I predict that they will suffer this real, very important, very crucial crisis of new ideas and crisis of legitimacy, crisis of his sacred character, of his nature, of his power. So he has this legend, this myth of Putin, that he always knows more than everyone. He always knows what to do. He always has a plan. But this war shows that he hasn't. And this war shows that he can't start another war to fight his problems with legitimacy. Because before that, if he experienced some problems inside Russia, he started the war. But he already started the full-scale invasion. He already, they endure hardships and losses, etc., etc. So he can't start another war to fight the problems of his inner legitimacy caused by this war, current war. So I predict that he will be re-elected, but then the most important will start afterwards.
Our time is coming to an end, but I wanted to talk, and it's connected to, you already started talking about what awaits us in the next year and in the future. One part of your survey was extremely interesting to me because it concerns itself with the Baltic states. And I will just quote from your findings that the majority of Russian citizens would support aggression against the Baltic states in case of a threat of an attack from the Baltic countries. So 55% of Russians say if there is a threat from the Baltic states, we will support. I mean, it's always me being from Lithuania and knowing like how small Lithuania is in all 3 Baltic states, I mean, what kind of a threat can we be to Russian Federation? But it's still, I can imagine, that, if there is a threat from somewhere, you would support. But 22% of respondents are saying that they would support aggression against Baltic states. So to me, it shows that there's kind of uncommon, at least to my mind, uncommonly high level of aggressive attitudes towards the Baltic states. Maybe it's understandable in the sense that Baltic states were quite vocal in supporting Ukraine, etc., etc., and there's a long tradition in the last 30 years to think of Baltic states as repressing Russian population, and so the Russian Federation normally thinks of itself as the defender of Russian-speaking people, etc., etc. But still, to solve all problems by war and saying, let's just attack, it seems unusually strange, to at least to my untrained eye. Can you comment on these numbers? And can you comment, let's say you were already saying what could be solutions for Putin to increase this internal legitimacy. But maybe, if the Russian propaganda says that they are at war with NATO, and that's partially that's the propaganda in case of the war against Ukraine, maybe, attacking Baltic states makes it a real war against NATO, and maybe that somehow justifies propaganda. So how realistic that would be, and how realistic it would be that Russian population would remain in these 4 groups, as you said, which seem to me very positively predisposed towards any war, because it seems to me that there's a lot of the groups of the Russian society either are passive or are supportive. I mean, ignorant or supportive of the war.
First of all, Ukrainian case, I mean, this war against Ukraine, it proposes a blueprint for Russian society. So this war was unprovoked. This war is inhuman, unjustified. But still, as we just discussed, there are only 15% that won't stand with that because of moral grounds and ideological grounds. The vast majority of Russian society is either passive or supportive. So, and the most important, if this case will be successful, by saying successful, is that if they will preserve this occupied territories, land bridge to Crimea, all this like 16% of Ukrainian territory at all, having Azov Sea as their inner sea. So if they will preserve all of this, so it will be from their point of view, and from of course for Russian propaganda, it will be a success story. So all these atrocities, all this casualties, they are rewarded with this with about 8,300 of kilometers occupied by Russians. And it will be a blueprint for another, I would say, aggression. So, first of all, it will be experience of living like a nation under arms. Second, it will be experience under sanctions, under isolation, under conscription, all their circumstances. Second, it will be a success story that at the end, it will be a reward. So it's not less senseless, hardships, senseless killings, but we will get something in return. So as for their attitudes towards the Baltic countries and their readiness to support this possible aggression against them, as you can see, there's arguments, the very same arguments Russian propaganda uses and used before to justify the full-scale invasion against Ukraine. Just yesterday, Putin signed another law for financial support for those affected by Ukrainian aggression. Once again, his formulation that to financially support those who were affected by Ukrainian aggression. So as you can see, this algorithm, these procedures are already made. You know, so to switch it to Baltic aggression, or Polish aggression, or Georgian aggression, or Kazakhstan aggression. So they have already all the blueprints for this. They have electronic database of those who could be conscripted. They have to close the border, to not to let those who can be conscripted fled from Ukraine. So everything will be ready for this action. Will it be counted like from the military stand point of view? Will it be counted from geopolitical point of view? For example, now Western countries are so weak that we will attack the Baltic states. No one will be able to respond, or it will be like some kind of 1940 when it was occupied and no one was were able to answer, or will it be like 1939 when Poland was occupied and divided between Nazi Germany and Soviet Union, and even with declaration of war against Nazi Germany, England and Great Britain and France, they were just sitting and doing nothing. So, and the Nazi Germans were surprised. Come on, we built all these walls and trenches on our borders. We think that you will engage directly because you are allies with Poland, but they didn't. So I would say that we can't predict what will be in this certain moment, but still, Russian regime and Russian societies have all the blueprints they need. Experience of mass mobilization, experience of acceptance of this course of events, experience of enduring hardships, of economic sanctions, etc. Experience of closing borders. It's a totally military economy. Switch to the east in exporting the goods. I mean the oil and gas. So they will be ready. Another question, justification of why we attacked. Of course, because of the threat from the Baltic states and Poland or any other country. So they have everything checked during this war, what works, what doesn't work, what should be improved. And of course, if it will be success story from their point of view, it will be a blueprint of starting another wars of aggression. That is why this war, and we can agree with Russians, it's not about Ukraine, but the whole Europe.
Well, last question, Alex. We're not ending on an optimistic note, but let me ask you: what, if any, instruments do we have to work with Russian society? So, from what you said, despite all the rather, pessimistic and negative aspects of an outlook of what's awaiting us, it seems that somehow the attitudes and the moods of Russian society are checked by the Kremlin and by Putin, and so they adjust their moves accordingly. Perhaps it's not a determining factor all the time, but still it's important for them what Russian society thinks and how it feels. And so it seems that it's vital for us that the party of peace, as you called it, that it rises from 10-15% to 50% and to 70%. And then perhaps that would be the most sustainable way of ending this particular war and ending all the recent history of aggression from Russia. But do we have, as outsiders, do we have any tools to affect Russian society? There was this, perhaps better than me, there's a huge debate in Russia, but also outside Russia, about all these so-called good Russians and bad Russians, and should we engage with good Russians? Should we engage with bad Russians? Should we build a wall and just think that it's all hopeless? What is your take as a person who continuously talks with Russians inside Russia?
So I don't want to be pessimistic and to end our conversation at this point, but still, first of all, when we are talking, I don't agree with the term of party of peace increasing to 50%. So I emphasize that this 15%, up to 15%, they're called the party of peace because they have moral, argumentations, moral motives why they don't accept this war. What we can hope and what should be our goal is to increase this party of peace up to 50 and more percent, not by changing moral attitudes and value systems of the rest of Russian society. I would say, I would argue it's quite impossible. But to turn them into the party of the end of this war. But this points of view, not from the moral ground, but from the, I would say, pragmatic or even egoistic motives. So what do I mean? When we cannot hope to turn Russian value system and to make them believe this war is unjust. Our only hope is to for them to understand that there is no positive outcome for them personally and the whole society, Russian society, the whole Russia, I mean, as a state, of this war against Ukraine and possible new wars of aggression against Ukraine and other countries, either member of NATO or just neighboring countries. So, and that is a problem, because this only hope to, for them to understand that this war is rather bad, the good one for them personally. It's not because we would like to use only pragmatic motives, but they will only that motives will work. So this generation of young Russians and middle-aged Russians and of course senior-aged Russians, they are lost for us to convince them using moral ground. They are lost because of discourse, because of educational system, because media environment, etc. So we have no hope for them to recognize this war as a war of aggression, and I mean, sincerely recognize, sincerely stand up and say, yeah, this is my responsibility. Our whole nation is, committed crime of aggression, committed atrocities. It was inhuman, unjustified war against our neighbor, unprovoked war, and we blame is on us. We have no such a hope, and we have no hope for moral grounds to convince them. The only hope is pragmatic motive, that there will be possibilities that you personally will be killed or your loved ones. There is a strong probability that your fridge will be empty. There will be strong probabilities there will be problem with goods, with medical services, with medicines, etc. And that is the problem for the upcoming generations. So even with the end of this war, with change of this regime, but without change of education, historical myth, media environment, and all the institutions, I would say fundamental turn of this institution, fundamental turn of discourse. There is no hope, and there's high probability of new wars of aggression in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Because these major factors, major feature of Russian society, these imperialistic implications, this criminal mentality, split consciousness, ability of this split consciousness, magical way of thinking, conspirology intervened with anti-Americanism. They will be, very fertile ground for rising of another Putin. Putin is just a reflection. This miserable, bold, not bold, like with less hair man, he's not such a charismatic. He's a reflection of everything we were talking about. He's just a reflection. And it's not he turned Russian society due to his beliefs and moral and value system. He just reflected everything. The worst, yes, the worst features, but still very powerful features. So it will be just a matter of time that everything, the cycle of history will repeat. So that is the problem. What could we do? First of all, we should understand that their value system, their mentality, their way of thinking is absolutely different. From the very beginning of even possibility, talking about possibility of negotiations with Russia, they should be recognized. I mean, there's intrinsic and crucial features of Russian mindset should be recognized and should be taken into account. I mean, this criminal mentality and this lack of empathy and many this absorption model that it's not a cooperation model. They don't recognize it, but absorption and oppression and violence as the universal language. We should understand that it's not emotional, depiction of Russian. It's what we have in front of our eyes just in those days. We can experience it every day. So from the very beginning, it should be recognized. There's intrinsic and very deeply ingrained features of Russian society and Russian regime and Russian regime is a reflection of this. That is why we don't have so many those who stood up against the war, not because only fear and oppression and repression and etc., but also because this regime and the decisions are the reflections of this inner discourse. So and of course the main I won't be, you know, I won't be unique, and you know, I won't say now something interesting, something new, but the only thing is to help Ukraine not to let Russia to turn this war into a success story, because that will be a blueprint for another wars. We didn't choose this war. We didn't choose this war even after annexation of Crimea and occupation of Donbass. But the logic of history, all dozens and dozens and hundreds of examples, they teach us that without response to aggression, without stopping it, and without turning it into unsuccessful story, it will, this aggression will proceed and will escalate to the unhuman, you know, scales. So I won't be, you know, unique in this.
Yeah, Alex,
instead of talking to good Russians, talk to good Ukrainians and help them.
Well, I couldn't have said it better. I think you know, it's clear that it's not going to be easy, and it's clear that Russia has to change, and we don't have many recipes, but at least one thing is clear, that we can't allow to make Putin and Russia, the war against Ukraine, into a success story. I think it's a very apt ending to our conversation. Alex, I'm very, very grateful. It was extremely interesting to talk to you. I would like to also point everyone who is interested in the work Alex does. You can visit the website, which is ikar/thinktank.org, ikar/thinktank.org. They publish the results of the findings of the surveys, etc. You can also get in touch. Alex, thank you so much. And you know, Slava Ukraini.
Heroes love. Thank you.